Okay, we are at the Education, Training, and Certification Advisory Committee. Welcome, everyone. Today is March 7th, 2019, and in attendance we have Tony Holzer from Yuma County, Jeannie Kench from Mojave County, and George Shook from the State Board of Equalization. Thank you. Judd Nelson is currently not in attendance from Yavapai County. However, it is anticipated that he will be here shortly. The role of the committee was one item that we wanted to start with, being that we have a new committee. This is our first meeting of the year. So just to cover the role of the committee, I wanted to provide the statute that talks to the Education, Training, and Certification Advisory Committee meeting. That is ARS 4213-007. It does speak to the specific members who are required to be on the committee or representatives, and it does speak to what the purpose of the committee is, and I will read that. The guidelines, the committee shall evaluate guidelines proposed by the department for placing persons who apply for administration to the assessor certification program into the proper professional level of certification. The guidelines proposed by the department pertaining to appraisal reports, experience, education, or training submitted for credit in the assessor certification program. The curriculum proposed by the department for the assessor certification program. The procedures proposed by the department for grading demonstration appraisal reports, including any graders who are designated for the reports, and the form and content of examinations that are given for credit in the assessor certification program. So that's the role of the committee, and as part of the committee, there is a person who would be elected by you individuals or members to be the chairman of the committee. And it's quite easy when one person's not here to elect them. Having said that, without Judd in attendance, the only thing that I can do at this point is provide you all the opportunity to make a decision on the chairman.
You'd be real good at it.
I like George. Oh, look it! He's even hiding his hand.
No, I don't think it's set up for. I don't think for requisitions. Well, I guess we are a member, aren't we? So. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, can I ask?
What I'm going to do is remove myself from being considered as the chairman. So there we go. However, there's an alternative.
Okay.
What does the statute say? It doesn't say the chairman of the state board, does it? It just says state board of equalization, doesn't it?
What are the roles? What's the role?
The members of the committee shall choose a chairman from among the members. The committee shall meet at least semi-annually at the time and place set by the chairman. Additional meetings shall be held on the call of the chairman or at the request of two or more members.
Okay, I need to review the statute that says the Board of Equalization will be a part of the committee. You have that here?
I do.
And that tells us what the role of the chairman is, so I can say the meetings are in Mojave County from now on? Just kidding. No, just...
Except on the vote of two or more.
I don't like the way it's written.
So the chairman really has the responsibility of the call of the meeting.
Can you be the chairman? Because you've been that responsible person.
To my knowledge, there's no nothing that prohibits that. We have always worked as the secretary, as a liaison on behalf of the chairman. And so if you elect a chairman and can give some direction to me as the secretary, I can certainly work on the chairman's behalf.
The statute says a member of the state board who was appointed by the chairman of the state board. Each chairman of the state board, since its existence, has always placed himself on the committee. Except for one time, I think they placed Robert Kohler on there. And I'm going to continue appointing myself to the board instead of one of our board members. So
Okay.
what I was looking for in there, I was going to see if I could put somebody else on it besides myself, but you win. That's why I was going to tell you before we came over here. It's going to make you a permanent member. But it won't let me do that.
So would either of you be willing to take on the responsibility of chairman?
Because I'm a member of 3 other boards right now, would you mind doing it this year?
Let's make Judd.
He's not here, so he wins.
He's been frequently late.
That's how we got Tim to be chairman.
Yeah,
I recall that
He
time.
was late? Uh-huh.
Yeah, he showed up late.
I don't mind being chairman. That's fine.
Okay.
And I'd like other assessors to take this role anyway, so that's fine. I'll be the chairman.
Okay, so Jeannie Kench is the chairman of this year's Education, Training, and Certification Advisory Committee. Thank you for volunteering. With that,
You owe me a lunch.
Jeannie, I think you're getting railroaded. I thought that required a vote. That's why I asked for if you had a quorum. So, and I think that came up before you were appointed. So.
and according to statute,
we had that issue, and I remember specifically it was a challenge as to whether or not we had a quorum to affect any action for that date. So.
Well, how many are on this board?
There's 4.
So we do have a
There's
quorum.
4.
Well, including me as the secretary.
No, there's 4 active, or how many positions supposed to be on it?
There's 4 committee members, including myself as a secretary.
Oh, okay.
So that would be, he's a committee member.
Yes.
I'm a
Okay.
committee member. You're a
There's
committee.
5.
So there's 5. Because then Judd's a committee member.
Right, so there's 4 and then including
Okay, but there's
me
4.
as
So
the
we do have a
secretary.
quorum.
Okay.
So we could vote if it makes you feel better
And there's no requirement
to vote.
that says it has to vote according to what this committee
Okay.
specifically.
There he is. Hi, Chairman.
Hey, Chairman. There's the new chairman of the.
So what did I get volunteered for?
Ironically, didn't know that. Good morning.
Hi, Judd.
Guess
How
where I
are you?
was?
On 15th Street up there?
Wrong building, yeah. My calendar showed your other building, so I don't know.
We're glad
It's okay.
you're
We're
here.
glad you're here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I decided not to do the dirty.
Which is what?
I make you chairman.
Oh, thank you.
I volunteered for you, so you owe me now.
Okay.
She was going to owe me, but now you're owing me.
So, Judge, just to let you know, the chairman is responsible for the meeting is scheduled by statute to meet at least semi-annually at the time and place set by the chairman. So as chairman, you would set that time and place. And then you would also establish additional meetings held at your call or at the request of 2 or more members. And then I am the secretary for the meeting by statute, and I am historically the liaison on your behalf to help with assisting those additional meetings. So, and we had called to order the meeting. Roll call. Judd Simmons from Yavapai County has now joined us. We've covered the role of the committee, which is essentially evaluating many of the aspects that I'm paraphrasing, of course, the statute that references the role of committee is 42-13007. And in paraphrasing that statute, I can read it in detail if you would like me to do so. It is essentially evaluating all of the aspects of the training and certification program. Okay. So that being said, unless we have any questions at this point, we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Do you need a copy of the agenda, Chuck?
Yes, that would be great.
There you go.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda was an item that Tony brought to our attention, which is training opportunities for the admin staff. And I will turn this over to you, Tony, for additional comments on that.
Since I came to work for Joe in Yuma County, the focus on education has been on the valuation side of the office, sending field staff and appraisers through certification courses. There's really nothing for the admin side. And I'm speaking specifically of like title records. At one point we almost turned our title records department into just an office specialist position. But there's a certain amount of expertise involved in title examination and understanding deeds and being able to get it in the accounts correctly. And I can't find anything to send my people to. So I thought that we've worked on the field staff side of things for the last 2-3 years, and I think we got a great program going on with the new training processes and methods. But I wondered if maybe now would be a good time to kind of shift gears and start looking at the admin side of an office. They're acting on behalf of the assessor every single day, just as much as our field staff do. They may not necessarily get into value issues with clients and customers and things like that, but they're still speaking on behalf of the assessor. And I think, at least from a title records side, if there was some kind of periodic training regarding mapping, lands, deeds. I think the last meeting that I was at least, Bill Staples brought up the fact that he has a really sharp guy in his office.
And I said I did too, and then guess what? She resigned.
She resigned. So I don't know if it's possible to feed off of that kind of experience and maybe get just creating some kind of a program that we can send, office level people to. And it doesn't have to just be title examination. It probably should be in regards to exemptions and freezes and tax roll corrections and the tax cycle and things like that. A lot of times when we hire somebody, it's just like throw them into the fire, and you can't train them. You do train them, but you can't with the way the government operates. Unless there's a vacancy, you can't fill it, and so the person that's leaving has to leave before you can put the new person in it. So there's no training time from the person that's leaving the position, which I've found to be kind of a hurdle.
Yeah, me too.
So
Huge hurdle. Can't believe that's. Yeah.
So I'm just kind of throwing it out there. I don't know. I don't really have any suggestions about this, other than there are just no courses out there in regards to admin side of the office that you can go outside of even the Department of Revenue. Appraisal courses don't work, and we've looked at title companies. They don't even send their people to classes, apparently. At least classes that aren't way over.
They don't? Because that was what I was going to ask. I haven't talked to a title
You've
company,
checked?
but that's where I would think the training would come from.
Back in the day, they used to have a certification, but that's many years ago. So the American Land Title,
Right.
ALTA, that's association, and I thought they did have the training. I didn't know they did not have a training.
You'd think that they would. Have some sort.
They offer an online course that we've kind of looked into a little bit. I haven't tried to take it. I don't know what the context is of it. From what I understand, it's a little bit out of line with what an assessor's office does.
Right, because they're looking at histories, right? They're looking
Yeah.
at title searches.
Yeah,
They're going to
there's
go back
more
to
to it.
1897 and find out how many people. Oh, that's not necessarily what we need to do. We just need to go from one owner to the next owner when it comes
Exactly.
to our title.
Yeah.
But the things that we have to look for.
Yeah,
In
I
a
worked
title.
for a title company back in the early 90s, and I don't remember any kind of training. I think you just kind of get thrown in the fire and you learn how to read deeds and all that stuff.
Yeah, my very well-educated, been there for quite a long time person left and didn't have any PTO, so she left. Had an offer somewhere else in Vegas or something. So I have no one to train her except for my systems support, which they know, but they weren't as well versed as her. I would love to have some sort of training. We're really in that nut.
We went through this in my office where we lost a very experienced, long-time employee that had worked for a title company, came in before I ever got there, and when she left, it was just like we're all of a sudden
Sucking
dead in the
sound
water.
out, yeah.
And she wasn't great about training, was part of our problem too. I could not get this lady to share her knowledge with the title examiner 1. So when she left, now we've got a title examiner 1 that we promote up to 2, and she's struggling. I mean, we're 1,000 transfers down today, and so she's struggling with splits and combos and subdivision plats, and we finally filled the position with someone that, I mean, you can't. It's one of those. It's almost like an appraiser spot where you can't hire experience, at least not in Yuma. And
Same here.
so we brought in somebody else that had worked for us before that's really sharp, and she is picking it up well, and I expect we'll get back on our feet. But it would be a lot faster if there were some courses, I think. If there was some way to create some courses along those lines.
From the department's perspective, first of all, I acknowledge that there's concern there and that training would help. From the department's perspective, our role by statute is a training and certification for appraisal staff.
That's it. That's going to be my question.
Having said that, we want to assist the assessors in whatever way possible. We would invite input as to how that might happen. I think that it would be necessary for the assessors to come together where they have their experienced staff. To your point, Bill Staples having that knowledgeable person on his staff, and I seem to recall he said he wrote up an extremely well-informed document that we might be able to use as well. However, that's one piece of information, and I'm not sure that will suit your needs. It's something, certainly. However, in an effort to provide the information that you're looking for, we are taking a look at the possibility of providing another all-day continuing education opportunity that would provide information along these lines. Exemptions, title information, CAMA if some possibility exists, GIS. Of course, our struggle is going to be to find that expert as well. I do believe a title examiner within the title company may work because there's staff under them who read documents, etc. The title examiner will look at ownership exchanges that may not address directly the assessor's needs, but hopefully it would be something. We, of course, have to track down who that might be that could provide that education. So those are some of the struggles that we would have as well. The thought that comes to mind is even on the outside, if anyone knows someone who has that knowledge, that maybe they could reach out to them and have them participate in some kind of presentation.
What complications would it create, if any, if I wanted to send somebody to just you've got the land course in level 1. What if I just wanted to send somebody to that week of training? Just put them insert them into the certification course, but just for the land portion.
There is an opportunity to test out for the rest of the courses, but to be certified and taking only one class.
Are you talking about just like a refresher?
This would be not to necessarily get certification.
Okay.
Now, in our series, our title examiner series 1, 2, and 3, if we have a person that is strong enough to get to a title examiner 3, we're going to require that they be level 1 certified.
Okay.
So we're going to put them through certification courses. But for that title examiner 1 or 2, I mean, the only land course I know of is what DOR offers in the certification series of that level 1. What would it be possible to just send people to that particular week of training, because it goes into legal descriptions and how to find properties and
Yeah, it's very, it works for even our GIS, our cartographers, that land class. It would be nice if we can open up just that class.
Okay. There's limited information in there. I would invite questions about what specifically it is that you would need or are looking for your staff regarding all of these specific issues, from title to exemptions, etc. That way we can build a training class around that. With regard to the land class, we have a few options. You could have your staff members sit in and audit, what we call audit the class, and in that way they're just attending. There's no test taking associated with it. There's no certification requirement where you'd have to take additional classes. One of the recommendations that might assist you is have them go through the ValCon or Valuation Concepts class for that 1 week, and they have that under their belt, and they can start. The clock starts as far as the appraisal experience. That way, if they want to move forward to get a certification, you have that experience now under your belt that you can start counting towards that. And the experience really is exposure to the appraisal process, and entitled to a certain respect is that they're working in the assessor's office, they're performing the tasks of the assessor, so we can look at that as part of the experience.
Question, just for me, if I can get an answer. Why wouldn't that activity actually be an appraiser anyway?
It's never...
It'd be a certified appraiser or level 1 appraiser, just assigning duty, just assigning that, a specific duty. So I don't...
Not necessarily in title or cartography. They don't really have appraisal duties, but having that land background, knowing how to read maps and legal descriptions is a big part of what they do, but there's really no appraisal component. I know what you're saying, just send them through, everyone through level 1, but we have to look at costs and time and all that other stuff.
And they're not putting a value. I mean, that's what it's all about with appraisals. They're not putting a value, but...
I understand that. But the function that you're talking about seems to be a responsible position. If it's a key position,
It is.
might as well be in a certified appraiser.
We have...
And I'm kind of on board with the certification thing, because, like I said, that's what we're going to require if anybody wants to become a title examiner 3. They'll go through level 1 certification.
The administrative function that you're referring to, probably the biggest drawback is you're going to have a high turnover. So once a person's certified level 1 and doing that, they're, of course, should be looking the next level up to make more money to get promoted. So you probably have a high turnover, but that person would be appraiser just like the other staff members that just have specific duties to perform.
I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that, but I also see that we would have a high turnover, because once my office specialist that's in system support that does titles gets their certification level 1, the first thing they're going to do is take the next appraisal job that comes up, because it pays more money. And so not only would we have to pay for a lot more, because the training is not just about the training, it's about, in our case, because we're in the rural areas, you have to put them up in a hotel and all that kind of stuff. So it costs quite a bit of money for our office specialists. Our budget could never afford that. If we did somehow do that and do like this office specialist here or this cartography person here, then I'm risking losing them out of that department, because it's a lot more fun to get in a car and get out of the office and make more money. So I think that it would cause concern in my department, in my office.
Yeah, I think you're looking at it the wrong way. Because in the private sector out there, everybody gets paid for doing a job. They create their own avocation. In the private sector, you go to a doctor's office, you got so many people running around there doing different things. I mean, why can't one person do everything? They don't do that anymore. One person doesn't do it. Even in the accounting office, one person doesn't do everything anymore. So you pretty much are going to have that problem, that if you just have a position out there and that's all it's going to do is just do administrative function, is that going to be more detrimental than the cost of training the level 1 appraiser?
There's negatives and there's positives in that. I mean, I do hear the sucking sound of them leaving system support and becoming an appraiser, but I also see what the cost involved would be. I don't see where we would be able to afford everybody in my office to go through appraisal.
Most of those positions are clerk, what we call in our county clerk 1s and 2s. They're pretty entry-level stuff. And to throw them into an appraisal, intensive 4-month program and a final exam and learning all of, a bunch of stuff that they don't want to learn or need to learn, except for maybe a couple of components, could be problematic from an employee standpoint, not from ours.
Not that I don't, because when they're there for quite a long time, I do want them to, and I will throw this cartographer in for appraisal 1 or this systems, because I see that there's a lot of value in this customer, but it's not something that
Well, it depends on what value you're going to put on the work or the task that they do. What value you're putting on it. How significant is it to the function of the assessor's office?
Right.
If they make a mistake, what's the cost going to be when that person doesn't know how to
liability to
read
our
a
county
title?
if there's a mistake.
So you want that person to be one of your key sharp people. You don't want it to be just anybody who's willy-nilly fly by night and
Which is like why we
change
want
out
some
every
sort
day.
of title training.
Well, and that's exactly why we didn't turn our title examiners into office specialists, into clerks, because I feel the same way as you. There's a certain level of expertise in examining titles and understanding different deeds and the processes involved, and it's more than just reading maps and being able to understand legal descriptions in a lot of cases. So it was a little bit of a struggle between me and Joe, but we kept our title examiner title and we beefed it up. I mean, we turned it into a progressionary ladder that somebody can climb coming in at entry level and get all the way up to title examiner 3, and not have to wait for somebody above them to leave to get a raise or a promotion. But they're going to have to get educated and show us that they can run that department.
Right.
So, we're sending the 2 that I have right now. They're going to the 600 class. IAAOs.
Yeah, I got 2 going to cartography, the 600. We put that in our budget.
It's something.
Yeah,
And
yeah, we're really happy that came up. You knew that, right? Yeah, you were there.
So, Jolene, sorry. So you're saying that there's no ability for the counties to throw in a employee during one session of a level 1 or a level 2 class and sit in and learn and test, but not get any kind of a certification. Just
She said they can be an auditor.
As an auditor of the class,
so what is that? I mean, that doesn't.
you would see that.
That doesn't like force anybody to learn it,
Correct. correct, and they wouldn't be taking a test.
Yeah, see that?
Otherwise, it would be part of the certification.
Maybe that would help a little bit. but-
So-
Jolene, I'm not thinking the way you're thinking. I'm saying why not, and you're saying you can't.
I understand, George, what I'm saying. One class and taking a test would not qualify for certification.
Oh, I don't
Yeah,
think
we're not looking-
I don't think anybody wants the certification in that regard. They just want the education.
Right.
Okay, so we don't test and certify, but we would provide a certificate of completion for that class
There's a test at the end of that week, right?
at the end of the week.
So this person could take that examination, and if they pass it, get
Then
some kind of a
Certificate of completion for
Yeah.
land?
I'm
Would do that.
in the same position, so I may be biting my nose off my face, but I have a staffer who has to be knowledgeable in the Avalon process. That staffer does not need to be certified, but that staffer needs the training, needs that information. And that's what I'm trying to do now, is get that staffer to as many classes as I am, and I will send her to IWO classes. Whether or not that person gets their certification or not, I think that education has to be there, so I'm going to spend the money to do that. But I have to have that knowledge for that person, because that person's the first point of contact with the public.
Can I ask, through, I don't know how specific counties are set up, through a tiered progression, it would seem there would be an employee would just, for example, a straight transfer, one owner to another owner without any issue. As that progresses, I suspect you're dealing with a higher level of complexity in the ownership exchange. At the first level or entry level, how does that affect the value of the property? Are you valuing the property specifically because of a certain owner, or are you valuing the property because of an LLC or a deed of trust? At what point does the valuation aspect come into play in transferring a deed?
I don't think any,
No.
except for that you do have the same people will be handling the notification of the value, the affidavit of value, but
Affidavit, yeah.
that's the same people, system support would be handling that. So
I would say 0.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
for
zero.
clarification, does the value of that property, is it affected? Do you value it differently because of
no, in fact we
ownership?
can't. Right? No.
And so that would be the question that I'd ask as far as a certification in and of itself. And to the point that you're saying, George, one class auditing it, a certificate of completion, I wouldn't argue that at all. In fact, I'm not arguing anything. I'm just asking the question that at one point would it be value, there'd be a value impact, and at one point would it be important to you all to make sure this person is certified, or what classes they would attend? In addition to that, you're representing 12 other assessors in your recommendations, and I suspect that whatever is chosen to do here, you would want to provide that feedback to them and get their input. I don't anticipate that if you're suggesting one class attendance, as long as that's optional, that they would be opposed to that.
Yeah.
Anything that is suggested here that potentially would create a requirement for all of them might be of concern.
Yeah, I'm not looking to put anything in rule
Yeah.
that
Right.
14 other counties have to do. I would just like to see more opportunity for training.
Yeah, and the certificate you get at the end of the week is meaningless. It's just a piece of paper. Hey, you passed, here's your score, nice job.
Thank
go
you
back
very
to your
much.
county
Right,
and
right.
you have the knowledge now to do a little bit better job. That's all. That's all.
Right.
I think that's all we're
Yeah,
asking.
yeah. And that land
And
class
I'm sure
is
there's probably
amazing.
a cost involved because
Right.
you're adding another student to your class, so
Mm-hmm.
and more paper and stuff. But that's fine. It'd probably be worth it.
Right, right. And we certainly aren't opposed to that. If there is consideration, and maybe I misunderstood George, but the idea of forcing, or not forcing, but requiring
Yeah.
a specific role outside of hands-on appraisal to receive a level 1 certification is where I'm raising this concern and an awareness of what that would mean.
No, okay, just for clarification there, I think we're on the saying the same thing. Training without the certification.
Yeah, just
Okay.
allow us the
Training
ability to,
sense.
because what they teach you in land is very useful, especially to a title person, because they read that description of land. They should know what that means. And there are times that possibly they can go from the last owner to the new owner and find that there was an error. Well, the only way you find that there's an error is if you know how to read that description of land. So that, as well as even possibly valuation concepts, which I know you already have open to, we can just take that if we wanted to. And
We send all of our staff through Valcon. Just clerks, title,
Right.
retired,
And we try to
anybody,
also,
so they
right.
understand. I think another big one for us is business personal property or personal property component of what was that, level 1. We have a lot of clerks that do business personal property, not appraisers. And that would be another great example of a course that we can just send a clerk 1 or clerk 2, just get them in there, let them learn it, and extra without having to send them through the whole level 1.
What is the relationship between your staff member and the county clerk and recorder's office where these deeds are recorded?
Well, in our case, it's good now. It didn't used to be. When I came, I kind of forced everybody to hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Well, the thing is, the legal description on these properties is extremely important. Okay, extremely important. Clerk and recorder has a major responsibility to. Well, no, all they have to do is
document it, right.
Put it in the book, and this is what you say it is.
Right.
And you said it is because you hired a land surveyor, you hired somebody else to identify your property, and the clerk is just going to put it in the book and say it was done on this date. Okay. But there's a little more that goes to it, especially if you own property. You want to make sure it's done correctly. There's clerk recorders identify on certain aspects of that. But for you to grab something from the clerk and recorder's office and say it's correct, how do you know that's correct?
See,
That's exactly
that's
it.
part of the training.
Just 2 weeks ago, we had the same concern over the fact that the recorder is allowed to record any document. You can record something on a napkin, okay? And it's not up to them to tell you whether you've got all of the right information on there. But that document could be recorded and then come up to the assessor's office, and my title lady says, it needs to be notarized. It's not notarized. But the recorder doesn't know to tell you that it needs to be notarized. So then, you have a problem because you have a constituent or a property that owner that is very angry because, well, the recorder didn't tell me that, but now you're so there is this sometimes conflict, and the brighter that recorder is, that happened before my girl left, okay, the easier it is to solve those problems. And also to be able to recognize that we're missing something, we're missing a notary, or we're missing a definition of a property. So I think just opening it up for some sort of, and then figure out what it's going to cost.
So there's probably some education you can get from the clerk and recorder if they will share that with you, or let your people volunteer to work with them over there for a while to gain experience or something of that nature. They learn how to read deeds.
I agree.
And in that regard, there, because it's crucial. It's sort of like this here. I've got a piece of property that, when they go to sell, the next door neighbor goes to sell their property, they're in big trouble.
Yes.
Their garage is
on-
15 feet inside my property.
Right.
So.
No, and that happens. Where we'll find something that, they dropped parcel A and B off of something 5 owners ago.
Right.
And it's only the title lady that goes, oh, we're missing something here, right? What happened?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we split it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you split it, but what happened to A and B?
Yeah.
So,
We end up being the kind of the watchdog, which is not our job, but we end up stuck with it because we have to interpret these deeds and make sure that they're, a good legal description. And we're having to be the neighborhood cop,
Right, right.
calling the title.
The bad guy,
You got
too.
this here,
right.
Well, if it were possible to use some of the educational resources that we now have, like the lands course and the business personal property course, and insert people into those, I mean, I see maybe an overcrowding effect happen, because when you guys set up your level 1s and 2 courses, you've got a head count going into that. But it would just be for that 1 week, that one lands course or the one business personal property course. And I'm just looking for ways to use what we already have, without having to go through and create a whole lot of new programs yet. We seem to be in for it. That's 3 out of 15 counties. I would think other counties would like to take advantage of that, as far as sending their people too. And maybe this turns into something a little more formal, or a little more, where people actually graduate from something like this. I don't know, down the road. But right now, in our office at least, it's kind of like learn by the seat of your pants. I've got Joe doing splits and combos because my title examiner doesn't understand them. And he's been around long enough to do them in his sleep. So, that's kind of where I'm coming from, at least in Yuma County.
And certainly I can appreciate those challenges, and we can look at what our options are. The certification is the concern. If it becomes a requirement of some type of classes taken for the roles that they're performing, then the department is responsible then to manage that as well. So
We're not
just
looking to
bringing
put more on you.
Thank you.
We just want more option to train our people.
And again, we can take a look at that.
That would be great.
There are certainly some challenges, to your point, how many students that we would bring into the class. We would absolutely take that into consideration as we come to some kind of determination on that.
Okay,
And then
well,
again, as long as it's an optional, it's not a requirement and it's optional, and that not all assessors are required to do that. There's probably a lot more buy-in from that group if it were to be approached that way.
I'll see if we can get it on the agenda for Thursday.
Yeah, that'd
Okay.
be nice.
Get on the agenda for what?
Thursday, our AAO
Assessor
meeting. So we'll kind of get a show of hands, just basic show of hands to see how many would be interested in that. So you would know. You'll normally be there anyway. So I'll see if Laura can put that on the agenda.
Madam Chairman, I would suggest that you appoint a 2-person committee to study the possibility of researching, not the possibility, to research and see where you can get the training that you're asking about, title training. If you, I would volunteer our agency to be a part of that committee.
Okay.
To research and see if we can help find out what type of training. It's in your job title.
Do you order lunch?
Phone calls to our local title company, talk to their chief title officers or title examiners and say, hey, where do you guys learn this stuff?
If we have a 2-person committee, and then everybody gets feedback to those 2 people, and then somebody can do the research and even contact Lincoln Land Institute, see if they have some suggestions.
Would you be willing to do that? To head that up? Okay?
That'd be great.
All right, and then, and
So
you'll be
Tony,
on
I
that
can
too?
work- I can work with
Yeah.
Tony on that, yeah.
Would that be okay?
We'll report back to, the committee, we'll report back to,
Yeah,
We certainly could put it on the agenda item for the next meeting.
that
if you'd
too.
like to
And
do
by that time, hopefully we'll have a lot of answers
See what we-
what's available.
of what's available, what the needs are. So you two work together on trying to get some answers, and we'll put it on the next agenda.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Because I would hope that,
Well,
according to your will, Judd, as chairman, meeting 4 times this year may help to ensure that we
Okay.
are making the progress that you want to make within these.
You know I'm up for that.
Yeah, that's
I don't know
fine.
how we
Are you
communicate
being
twice a year.
sarcastic, Tony?
No, that's what I pushed for the first year.
You know,
I
it's hard to
recall
get
that.
things done with 2 meetings.
Yeah.
It really
But
is.
communication.
Yeah, so I
gets
don't mind
missed.
that either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a thought on that. If we have the opportunity to maybe combine that with maybe our assessors meetings, so we're not making multiple. You drive a long way, you have to drive a long way.
Right, maybe we can
From
do it on
Prescott.
a,
Maybe we could do it in the morning of our assessor meeting, or I know that's kind of, we follow ACO.
right, that's
What's the day before? Is there
maybe a
anything-
Wednesday before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they do anything on the Wednesday, or is it just a Thursday?
No, it's normally
Friday, or just a Friday?
Just a Thursday. I don't know about our AAO is just Thursday.
Yeah, but isn't there ACO on Friday?
I don't
think
get
there is.
that. Is there?
Yeah,
Okay.
Joe's staying over for it, I believe.
Does he?
Friday,
Okay.
yeah.
Just a thought. I mean, if we could have the opportunity, then
Try to, well, I'm still the chairman, right? So at that point, if I'm pulling the, it's up to me to decide on the meetings. I'm going to do what I can to try to squeeze everything I can within a 1 or 2 day, because we have to travel, and it's something that sometimes it's not thought of.
So, apologize, I have to clarify. I think I've heard a couple things. We need to identify who is the chairman.
Yeah. Well, I think we were joking, but I don't
Okay.
mind if he's the chairman.
go right ahead.
That's right, because the tape recording. You're hey, chairman.
It's already documented right there.
So Jeannie Kent, you
Yeah, I'll
will
be the chairman. Yes.
And I will work in conjunction with
Okay,
you.
and we'd like to. What would our special meeting, committee, be called? System special. I don't know. What would you like to call it? An education committee
Title
within an education
education or
committee. Sub-education committee? Okay. Sub-education committee. All right, then that's what we're going to call it. Thank you, and George and Tony here.
And just for the sake of hopefully this all working timing-wise, that we don't feel like we need to be in a tremendous amount of hurry. Our level 1 class is ending in June, and let me see here.
You've got the whole year already scheduled, though, so
Right, now if we had a level 1 series at the end of the year,
which I think you do this year, don't you? No.
not for this year, not
Okay.
the way it's planned, but our next level 1, and this topic will come up with regard to the schedule and where we are with the status of our training team at this point. The next level 1 will begin in January, from January to June of next year. So for the purposes that we've talked about having an auditor within these classes, that would be the level 1 series
Okay.
for business personal.
That'll give us a half a year to get it taken care of. Okay.
2020.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Can
And
I go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to move on to the next agenda item, so if you had,
What's the next agenda item?
that would be property data collection changes.
The governor is promoting this bill in the legislature. He's not promoting, he's going to support the bill in the legislature to have reciprocity in licensing different applications to, if you're a plumber in one state, based on the agreement between the states, a person can transfer their license to Arizona. You guys doing the same thing with your certification program.
If the individual can provide continuing education to support the 20-hour, the requirements to receive the certification and pass the exam, then they would be an Arizona certified appraiser.
Thank you.
20 hours and pass the exam.
And I apologize, not 20 hours, the number of hours that are required to receive each level of certification. And
So they got to go back to school.
not necessarily, they could test out,
Test out.
okay, or if there is,
But that's not reciprocity if you're making them test.
Right.
correct, and I didn't say that there was reciprocity.
So we don't know yet
Yeah.
until if this gets passed, is what he's asking.
Well, no, this is, well, I'm just saying, inside the department, does the department have a similar program
Right.
for that?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
So we'll have to see how that
It's
pans
a
out.
certification program. Kevin's
Okay.
talking about licensing, so.
Right.
We have very few out-of-state job applicants.
I don't think we've had any.
You don't get any?
And one of the things that would need to be considered is the Arizona-specific practice that this appraiser coming into this state would need to know, because we are not likely completely the same as any other, or entirely the same in the appraisal practice. So that would be one thing to consider.
Okay. Thanks for that
Okay.
question.
So, moving on, the property data collection changes. And if I might, I do have to say thank you to Krista. She prepared the large majority of this before leaving, so it's been very helpful. And I can refer to this information based on what she has compiled for this purpose. We sent out a copy of the changes. There was requested changes to the property data collection course. We sent out a request for feedback, and received feedback from multiple entities, and we went ahead and incorporated that feedback if there or the suggested changes. If there were any concerns about any of the changes, she reached out to you individually and had conversations related to that. We have a document here that identifies the feedback that we received and the changes that we made. So rolling out the next data collector class, those changes will be incorporated into it. And if, again, I have a couple copies here. I can send you a copy of this document, what's the specific changes, and who identified those as something that they'd like to see changed. Okay.
Who provided the input?
Specifically, Bill Staples and Renee James. Mr. Shook, just kidding. Jeannie, you provided some. Judd, you provided some. Tony, you provided input as well. So based on those individuals, or all of you, we've incorporated a large majority of the changes. And again, Krista reached out to you in the event there was something that we either accommodated in a different way, or some reason why it may not have been a good idea to put it into the course. Okay. So those changes are now in the data collector class. I can send out. Yes, sir.
Sorry, did you put them all in there, or did you just take what you thought was from your or Chris's decision to incorporate, taking all the data or all of the input from us and put it all in there?
A large majority of the input was placed within the material. It was those individual circumstances that again, either it was identified in a different way. So the concern that was raised was in the material already, and it was just identified in a different way. And then if there was something that maybe didn't seem to fit best in there, we would have reached out to you at least that's my understanding, we've reached out to those individuals where maybe that was not the best place to put the change, or for some reason in the class it wouldn't be best to make that change. But again, a large majority of them did go in there. And certainly we can send the course back out to everyone to review and take a look at it.
If I'm not mistaken, there was an email indicating that the final draft was available for review, right? Wasn't there?
The release
Before you
version is
left?
out.
Yeah, I didn't get it, and I sent an email off to the training department yesterday, and I probably left before they had a chance to respond. But I would like to have a copy
Okay.
of
Me
how
too.
it reads now.
And I wanted to thank you too for reaching out, taking our input,
Mm-hmm.
and making the changes. It was like a well-oiled machine. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Okay. So anything else then on that agenda item? Judd, would you like to also see the final draft? We
Oh,
can
sure, you
resend
bet.
that email.
Yep.
Okay, next, the agenda item, again, was raised by Tony. 2019 appraiser training and certification schedule. If you want to add specifically what your request.
I didn't know if losing Krista is going to throw a kink in the training schedule at all. Now, I know Jeff and Dave, is it Dave? Will have their hands full, obviously. So that was just it. We've got, we might have some people coming up that we want to put into certification courses. You know, at this point, I guess if level one's not until January or March of next year, then we've got plenty of time. But I didn't know. You know, she filled some big shoes over here, and there's some big shoes left behind to fill. So I didn't know. I just didn't know what the plans were for the department, whether she's going to be replaced, continue as you are.
Because she's in this room, I have to say she could never be replaced. So our current situation right now is Jeff is the only individual at this time who has the level 1, IAAO level 1 and level 2 certification. The other challenge, so he would be the only one at this time. And the other challenge is David Gibson, the other trainer. We're just now bringing him up to speed. Last year he went through the certification classes so he could be level 2 certified. And he's now getting into the classroom to start teaching certain portions of those classes. So that's where we're at currently. The plan is to hire another trainer. The challenge for us will be the amount of experience that we get with that trainer and move forward from there. Our hope is to be ready to put on the proposed training schedule for 2020. However, it was very intensive when we scheduled it. It was based on an agreement made in the prior meeting, the prior year education advisory committee meeting. And so that being the case, I can give you the proposed schedule from that last year's meeting. I would be concerned about being able to maintain that schedule.
That's what you're asking, huh? Yeah, it's like, are we still going to go?
Yeah.
Because you were trying to swap.
All right, let me do something here, okay? Tony, are you concerned with not being able to meet the 2019 schedule?
I'm not so concerned about the 2019 schedule because we're pretty set right now with that. But we've through our budget process have allotted some money for probably certification courses at the beginning of the year. And I know there was some talk about, wasn't there, trying to do a level 1 and 2
Yeah, see?
at twice a year?
This just for 2020.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So they were
There it is.
biting off a big nut,
Right
and she
then.
left.
And she leaves.
so now I appreciate this agenda item because that is good conversation. And are we going to be able to do
Darlene,
that?
if it's impacting 2019, there's some interagency agreements that can be worked out in that regard. 2020, that's a different
That's-
ballgame.
yeah.
2019,
And this is what we're
I'm sure
looking
we
at
can
here,
work out
is-
an interagency agreement then.
Are we still going to have
Okay.
both levels
So
available?
you're not missing any of the things that you planned for 2019.
And,
So I can offer that up.
thank you. Because full disclosure is, if anything happens to Jeff, that could be challenging for us. David, excellent employee instructor at this point from the information that we have. I think we would be doing your staff a disservice if he was the one training any of these classes in 2019 and that being his first time providing that training. But once more, we are okay as long as Jeff is okay at this point. Now, that's assuming, or that's because I don't know what we will have coming in to replace Jeff. It is a challenge for us to bring someone in who already has that instructor experience, that appraisal experience, and we can go ahead and bring them into the classroom. It's still a problem for us if we can't get them into the IEW certification class, which is the one required in order to teach the IAAO classes. Having said that, George just agreed to give us Krista at any time that we
Did you
need
hear that?
her.
It's on the table for you.
There's a caveat there.
Okay,
There's a caveat, though.
but that's where we're at
Yeah.
at this time.
Can I ask you, have you already posted the job? Are you actively looking for somebody?
We have not posted the job, however, we are actively
April 23rd,
pursuing
right?
behind the scenes, if you will.
Just can't post yet, right?
Right.
We know the game.
Historically, is it
They
is it hard to find somebody to do the training, to find somebody that could do the training?
Very difficult for us.
Are you pulling from counties or are you pulling from the private sector, fee world?
Whoever would be willing to fill out the application and would fit the requirements that we're looking for, we would be interested in interviewing that individual.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of.
I'm not willing to get rid of any of mine.
I thought that maybe that's what Jed was saying. Is there someone on your staff that
We have our appraisal data collector certificate tied to a new employee's 6-month probation. So we're going to do all of our training during that 6 months, and we'll do the training for the appraisal data collector course. But here again, the department needs to come down to proctor the test, and so there's no. I mean, that's not something that I can kind of like put on a schedule. You know, we've got 4 that just went through, just passed, and now have the certificate for appraisal data collector. But I've got 2 more coming up that will probably be ready to go in about 3 months
Okay.
or less. And that's all predicated by turnover, you know. And since we want to, fortunately, we are doing our own training, because I don't know how you fit that in too with your certification courses, and then, you know, throw a week-long appraisal data collector course in there as well. Now, it was kind of and I don't know how many other counties are doing their own training when it comes to the appraisal data collector thing, but. You know, if there has to be a week of that thrown in there, then obviously, you know, it can create scheduling issues.
Right. At this time, I don't know of any county that has, other than the initial implementation of the program, there may have been one that has performed their own or requested us to provide the training. Otherwise, everyone else, and by everyone, it's been a limited number of counties, has provided their own instruction, and we've just proctored the exam. And with regard to proctoring the exam, that should not be an issue. That shouldn't be any challenges for us.
I don't know. Jeff had some pretty big bags under his eyes after getting down to Yuma last week, the week before. It was a quick trip for those two guys. I just wanted to throw it out there that if my office, and like I said, we'll be going into that week-long training course for the two that are coming up here in a couple of months. If a county wanted to send an employee to us, and everybody was good with that, we would be happy to incorporate them into the classroom, because we had 4 this last go around. We're only going to have 2 in the next one. So obviously the more people you have in a classroom, the better it is.
Right.
But we would be willing to help train that person if they couldn't get into a DOR training week, kind of a deal. But here it's all about timing, though.
Right, and we appreciate that offer. I know that for Maricopa classes, they've had other county employees come to those. One concern that we have is that the education is broad-based, and what I mean by there, it's not specific to any county necessarily, because each county has their specific ways and some of the methods that they use. So as long as it's following the material, because the material is designed to be generic, if you will, so it should cover the basics for all counties. Now, if it was just your staff in there, certainly I could see where it would be beneficial to address more specifically the items that are specific to your county.
We're teaching out of the book.
Fantastic.
Out of your handbook. We don't get into our computer system. We don't get into Marshall and Swift, except as far as the handbook gets into it, because we want them to pass the test. I mean, it's your test that was written about from that book, and so we want them to pass that. Before that week, they're learning Yuma County ways. After that week, when they pass and can be out there in the field on their own, then they'll go back to Yuma County ways. But pretty much it's close enough anyway.
We did end up auditing one county who was willing to provide the class. We're very grateful that they were willing to do that. Although we did, through that audit find that training was a bit more slanted toward
That caused a lot of problem with my employee. We won't go to that class anymore.
Well, I did hear about that.
He came back and said, now I got to start all over again. And it definitely was not a benefit. So we're just going to go straight to 1 and 2, because it was a problem.
Okay. So, again, to reiterate your point, and I understand we'll need to make some decisions fairly quickly here. That, unfortunately, is going to depend. I would first say that if we have current conditions the way they are, we likely won't be able to meet the 2020 planned schedule. However, there is not a potential that we could, dependent on how soon we can fill the role that is currently empty and the experience that the person coming in has and their ability to train.
So in essence, don't plan anything yet. We'll probably know by our fall meeting what we're looking at. Put it in your budget. We can always not spend it. So that's where we're at, really, huh?
Right, and to your point, Jeannie, the idea with the 2020 plan is it was more robust. It offered more options, and that was designed to help move us forward into 2021. Mm-hmm. That was feedback that we had in the prior year's committee because of the scheduling of the classes and the other responsibilities that the counties had. There should not be any issue, any problem with offering a level 1 and a level 2 next year. And in fact, the desire really would be to maintain the same calendar as 2019 shows.
I'm going to expect that, because unless we have something coming down the pike that's going to provide you with the proper training ability, I can see that we're just going to end up staying. I mean, it was nice to be able to offer that and do a little change, but I understand.
And there's nothing that says that potential doesn't exist down the road.
We just don't know.
It's just
Be prepared for it to change.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's what we have on that agenda item. Any other questions related to that?
No, I don't think we even have a collector position. Got a collector. How many counties are offering that title or that position? Do you know?
I do not know that.
You, Jeannie, you have one or two? No. You guys have a couple.
Yeah, we've
Yeah,
got.
Maricopa was pushing it because that's right.
I believe we were just in Graham County, maybe Gila. Actually, I'm leaning towards Gila County. And they just had some of their staff go through the course. Potentially Coconino County, I'm uncertain. Maybe Yavapai, but I'm just kidding.
I would see it be beneficial for the smaller counties that can't push somebody through a level one quickly or pay for a level one. You know, they can at least have that. So, yeah.
And I have to at this time, recognize Jeff Law, excuse me, because he's been actively pursuing options that are low cost to the county. He's spent a considerable amount of time, and he's utilized his previous experience in the hotel industry to work through some of these items that would create some cost savings for the counties. So I just want to acknowledge him at this time for that effort, and I have absolute confidence that he will continue down that path to help the counties and their budgets. So from there then, we wanted to talk about the continuing education reporting time limits and propose some suggested changes. The concern that we have is that we send out, we have the 20-hour requirement every 2 years, and we attempt to notify counties when the employees need certain number of hours, they're lacking, and the time is diminishing, and then we end our 2-year cycle and we have employees didn't meet their 20-hour requirement, and then we're notified after the fact that certain classes were taken through the course of the 2 years, but it's the end of the year or the end of the cycle that they're just now bringing it to our attention. One of the things that we wanted to propose is a limit on the amount of time after the cycle, after the class is taken, when it can be reported to us, and we're suggesting that limit is 6 months. So in short, if the class is taken in, as an example, May of 2019, it couldn't be reported to us 7 months later as a continuing education class.
Why would that be a problem?
The challenge that we have is the 2-year cycle has been completed and the employee has not met their 20-hour requirement, and we get reports after that 2-year cycle of classes that they took a year ago or a year and a half prior to the end of that 20-hour requirement. And that's challenging for us then to go back into the system and try to play catch up on all of those continuing education courses that were taken, but they didn't identify those within what we would consider a timely manner. So that's the proposal that we have with regard to reporting continuing education.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that. It seems to be there's got to be a better way, because I mean then you're punishing an employee for somebody in their staff that didn't do their job in reporting. So you have contacts in each county, right?
There's a training liaison.
Somebody that's supposed to shuffle you to keep you updated with all the education within each department. So you're saying that's not happening with all of the counties or some of the counties, or
That's not happening with some of the counties, correct. Now, it would be those counties that, well, the ones that we're really concerned about is the 2-year requirement has passed, and now they're coming back in and saying,
Well, Judd,
we took
But
those.
we took this class, this class,
Right,
this class.
right.
and-
so would you be opposed to say that the limit would be that 2-year requirement then? So let's say you have until the end of this year to do the last 2 years, and that's your deadline, right? We all know that's your deadline to get your 20 hours in. Anytime after December 31st of this year, you're done. Then you don't have the problem of trying to go back into your system and add to it. But
Is it a January 1 date, or is it specific to that individual employee, or when's the 2-year cycle start and stop?
The 2-year cycle, and
Or-
I don't recall, there's two different 2-year cycles. Maricopa County has one that they follow on a 2-year cycle, and it's countywide, it's not employee specific.
Okay.
All the other counties follow under the same schedule, where all of their employees need to get 20 hours within that 2-year cycle. And it's either, I believe it's a January 1 to December 31 over that 2-year time span, and that's for all the other counties. Maricopa, I believe, or it's opposite, is mid-year, 2 years.
It's opposite.
Okay.
We're January.
So you're January 1 to December 1.
and we're fiscal year.
Fiscal.
There you go.
So when we approach that 2-year mark, do you send a notice to the county saying, with a list of employees saying these people are short? So you do have some. You are apprised of, the continuous progression of education for all of the certified employees, right?
Correct.
So maybe at the 6-month mark, you say, hey, look, here's your warning. Where's the education? Or get them into class and get them caught up by the end of the term.
We have incorporated that where it's a metric of ours, where we're looking at a way to improve the process where employees are getting or appraisers are getting their 20-hour requirement in. So we're sending updates through the course of the cycle, very specific to at least those last 6 months, and saying, here's where the staff are at with regard to the 20 hours.
Okay, so if they, what you're saying is, if we go past the 2-year mark, they don't have the amount of hours needed. What is the punishment?
Their certification would no longer be active.
No longer be active, but would that require them to? Would they reactivate it then?
Working off memory here. George, can I ask your staff member her familiarity with this? I don't want to say.
We have to sign an interagency agreement.
I don't want to give incorrect information. What her recollection is of.
My point being is, if there's no real punishment for it, if they just need to provide the hours, or I can't imagine them, get their level 1 pulled and then they have to take the whole, 5-week course again.
He gave me approval.
Okay.
I'm chomping at the bit here. If your certification becomes inactive, you must take the highest level certification exam to reinstate your
The
certification.
final exam?
Correct, the very last one. Now, the reason this has come up, because right now I think we have 3 months in our current policy. You have to give this information within 3 months. We have a written policy. The problem is, just before I left, I got emails from other counties where people were questioning the hours they received for the 2017 Arizona Tax Conference. This now requires somebody to go find those sign-in sheets and check all that. Or, I know I attended an AZIAAO meeting earlier in the cycle. We have a retention program, so we have a lot of that information. But to have to take a staff member and go through and try to research what they attended, because a lot of people don't check in, and then they come, well, I know I attended. And it's one of those things that maybe you go through a year or two where you don't get the hours, maybe you'll start actually signing a sign-in sheet, not to be nasty, but we do this, we have everybody sign in so that we can have this process in place. Now, just to respond to the communications that happens throughout the cycle, we have an online training management website that every single liaison has a login to, and there's a report right on the homepage for what's the status of all your staff for continuing education. And then Jeff does, I think he just did an update, but they can go at any time. In some counties, I know Pima actually prints it out and posts it for all the employees to check the status of their hours. We did that at the DOR. So people can look and say, oh, I only have 16 hours. I should have 25 or 20 or whatever. So the information's available. All they have to do is log in and look at that report. And they can see the specifics to see if it is missing a conference. Or people will say, I never got credit for the IAAO conference. You have to provide us with IAAO. You have to go up and print your transcript. We wouldn't know what IAAO is. So it's just trying to make people more accountable closer to the time frame that it happened. Luckily, I had an example of one person, and they actually did the Arizona Tax Conference 2017 and the IAAO conference. Well, I just went with the easiest one because I didn't want to have to go look at sign-in sheets, and they had enough hours with the IAAO conference, and once we got that 20, we called it a day. That is not always the case. So if that doesn't answer all your questions, I kind of just wanted to lay out why it's so important to ask people. And we have one county that is notorious for doing exactly what Jolene said. They wait till after the cycle ends, and then all of a sudden we get a flood of information of everything that their staff has attended.
Yeah. What was the proposal again at the 2-year mark? You send out, you cut it off at 2 years, or is there like a 30-day grace period or something?
The proposal is 6 months after the class has been taken.
Oh, after the class was
Right.
taken. Okay, yeah, that's pretty harsh.
As someone that has taken a lot of education, I've never received any report that tells me all of the classes I've taken that I do sign in for. And so when does that information get to Mike Hen that does that report for everybody on CEs? They just kept telling me, well, you had your hours because you did your training. But I know I had more hours than those but it's not like I ever got any response saying, thank you very much for taking these classes. You now have 8 hours of continued education that you don't need.
Not you personally.
No, me
but somebody
personally.
But somebody in your county.
I'm just using me as an example. I never got any information. I never got anything saying what I did. And I've asked quite a few times, and they're like, oh, don't worry, you don't need it because you've already got your 20 because I took the classes. Well, I understand that. But it just seems as if I would have an accumulation of class time that I should have somewhere.
Is that a possibility to notify the individual certified?
I mean, I did take a lot of
appraiser?
classes, and I don't have any credit for it, I guess is what I'm saying.
The idea of setting up a county training liaison is so we would not have to be actively involved.
Well, they don't know what classes I take, though. So, like, I guess when I go to a conference, I go to all these classes and I sign in my name on it, but he doesn't know what ones I've taken, and I can't keep track of what ones I've taken. I just know there's a sign-in sheet, and I'm going to sign on the thing. So
that would be in the Intellects system, and your county liaison can pull that data.
Okay, thank you.
So
That's, I guess it is there.
Accessible.
Okay.
Now, having
Intellects, I
said
gotta
that,
do that. Okay.
we're open to enhancing the reporting process somewhere so that the staff are more aware of where they're at. But ideally, it's not an individual communication, and in fact, some counties would prefer that we don't communicate specifically with the employees. But as far as an enhancement, we can make sure that there is a time frame with which we send out that notification. We can make sure that it's all of the staff that are included, regardless of meeting the 20-hour requirement. I can tell you that anything beyond 20 hours we do not track, because that then becomes even more burdensome for us. But those are some steps that we can take.
When are you going to make this decision?
Initially, we thought of proposing it for this next training and curriculum, the next cycle for continuing education. I'm considering it now and thinking there might be a grace period in between, just to prepare everyone. We can educate them that this is what the new practice will be, and it will be effective in whatever year, and hopefully that would be potentially a 1-year grace period or 1 cycle grace period, and then move forward. That would be my proposal on that.
I think 6 months is plenty of time to be able to notify. That means that the liaison, which would be like Ken, twice a year has to go in and make sure all the CEs are noted on his spreadsheet, right? I mean, it doesn't seem to be too much to me, but I guess...
Not for me. I mean, we have a great, we're caught up on all of our education.
I don't have a problem with it.
I'm fine with it too. I think there needs to be some structure on that part of it.
Yeah, make your life easier on you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the county's responsibilities to make sure their certified people keep up to date with their classes. It's not yours. At least I don't view it as a Department of Revenue responsibility. I appreciate it if you send out those things saying we've got 5 people but I don't see it that you have to. We've got my executive secretary, that's what she is tasked with, is to keep up to date on those things and make sure that she gets the paperwork submitted for credit. And I look at it as it's my job, our job, the county's job to make sure their certified people stay certified. So obviously,
But like you said, you have problems with a few counties, and if you have an appraiser that's lost their certification and they've been doing it for 10 years, I know I couldn't take that final exam without going through the books, or at least really studying hard, because especially the level 2, that wasn't a cakewalk.
So let me throw out there then at this point, and you would be responding on behalf of the other assessors if this was the idea that we pursued the grace period time frame. Quite frankly, we would like to implement it for the next cycle. However, if there are concerns about the thoughts of the other assessors, I would not want to not take those concerns.
I like the idea. I'm just kind of making the argument the other way, but I do like the idea because I can understand the struggle you're having with reporting and keeping up with it. So I do like that. But we may want to address the punishment side of it at another point.
Well, you're right, and a warning. I mean, this is the new policy. You have 6 months to report your CE. And then remind them. And then we're serious.
You're going to lose your certification. I don't know if you want to take that class again. Or that
I don't know if
test
you've all done DUNS before, but sometimes it takes 3 times and the big red stamp. I have no problem with
that's
that.
enough motivation for
Yeah.
people to get their stuff together.
Right.
Now you're going to have to take that final exam again.
Okay. Anything else then? Thank you all for your feedback and consideration. Anything else on that topic? All right. So then the next topic on the agenda, some questions have been raised about the basic math grading, and those questions are related to having those basic math tests graded by us, even though the employees are not going through the certification program. And there's no need for us to to grade any basic math tests if there is no plan to go through the appraiser training program. If they are going through the appraiser training program, then we do want to grade those basic math tests and move forward.
You're going to go to just a pass-fail, or what would you do?
It would be the county taking a look at that, just the basic math portion,
When it's not tied to certification.
when it's not tied to certification.
So like, let's say I have them go through basic math if they work for us. So everybody gets it. And they start at system support and they decide they want to be an appraiser. So then what?
I am not sure that we've given that much consideration. Having said that, if you've graded your students' test, I think you would know if there's concern at that point.
Which would be a good indicator if you want to.
No, I mean, if we're the one that graded it as a system support person, because you're saying unless we plan on them going through certification, then you don't care what we do at the county level, right? As far as the grading of that. But if they are going through certification, you want to grade it. So let's say we've changed. We see a real potential in this employee, and we've decided to have them go get certification. Now we've already taken the math test, and we graded it. Is it not going to count now?
Well, and again, I don't know that we've taken a deeper dive into
Okay.
that. Having said that, if I were to just convey some thoughts, my thoughts would be, if you've graded it and you've seen that this may not be a potential student for the appraisal program, then I would think that you would make a decision from there.
That's obvious. Yes.
If you think that based on what you've seen and you want to send them through and they took the basic math sometime before, if you gave us those numbers, I don't see that would be
Okay, as long
a
as that's the
concern.
concern, then it doesn't matter. Huh?
Are we talking about this? I just want to make sure what we're talking about now. The math test, is that separate from Valcon?
yes.
So that was the intro to property tax.
Yeah,
That's
the
separate.
It would be,
4901.
yes, the basic math and
That was
intro to
that was the
property
open
tax.
book,
Yeah.
the one that we took, and is that what you're talking about?
The math test that goes with that, correct?
Because there was never a grade associated with that anyway, from my recollection.
There, if you were going through the
Sure.
appraiser certification, that would have come back to us to grade that test. Or
It did.
the
Huh.
intro to property tax and the math test would have been
So
returned to us.
yeah, okay. So that's the very first thing that we give the employee. Hey,
right.
Do this, and
Tells me
we'll
how
see what
smart they are.
happens from there.
I like that test, to be honest with you.
So that you're not talking about grading Valcon. You're not talking about the data collector. Just the math.
Just the math.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, I always thought that was just a
Yeah, I
open
just,
book thing anyway.
just as long as it's not going to be a situation where they took the math test, they've been with me for 2 years, I've decided to go to certification, and now you're going, well, we didn't grade that, so we can't do that.
We would like to have you send the math
That's
test
not
back
a
to
problem.
us.
Right,
But
right.
along with the intro to
Right.
property tax at the time
What's
they
causing
take that.
the change?
It's not really a change. We want to put it into the curriculum and guidelines, but we have had counties come to us asking for us to grade the basic math, but they're not intending to send their students to the appraisal program through that course. So
Huh. I don't know what would be the point of that.
I'm uncertain as to why,
Okay.
but that's what we're experiencing.
Oh,
You
because
say
I
you
do.
want- you
Because
want-
I do. I have all of our employees, even administrator has to take that math test.
Well, we send them all through Valcon.
Okay. Yeah, I don't
Send
do
all
all of them
yours.
to Valcon, but I have all of them take the math test. I try to send everyone to Valcon, but it depends on what we have.
Well, isn't the 4901, which is what we're talking about here, isn't that a prerequisite to Valcon and appraisal data collector and to get all the way through? I mean, you've got to take those two self-study courses DOR sends a test down, we give them the test, but the tests go back for grading. I mean, is it a situation where there's too many tests coming in to grade, or
It is
why do we even think about changing it?
because we're asking to grade a test that it's not going to be a part of the appraiser training
Yeah.
course for them.
Then we shouldn't make it a requirement for Valcon and data collector.
I can see that.
There's some
Data collector's not a
conflicts.
requirement.
That's not,
No,
Data collector's a requirement to go on to level 1.
it is.
Yeah.
no, that's a separate, that's a
It's a
completely
totally separate thing.
classification. There's no
Yeah, because we're not doing a
prerequisite
data
for
collector at all. We're going straight to level 1.
that. Yeah.
And I'm going to again seek Krista's input.
Okay.
Again, I apologize, but she is
That's
a
okay.
source of knowledge when it comes to this.
The basic math assessment came around after I started the DOR because what was happening is we had people come to valuation concepts and they were way behind on their math skills. And we found ourselves spending more time teaching math, conversion to decimals, percentages, that type of thing. So we came up to a math assessment. We don't give a grade. What we do is when they are enrolled in valuation concepts for property data collection and we teach property data collection, they're enrolled in basic math assessment. Anybody in valuation concepts is enrolled in that. And the whole goal is to give the instructors an idea how this person's going to do in the math. When we look at it and we grade it, we don't provide pass, fail, or grading. We look, okay, this particular topic of math, maybe it's converting decimals to percentages. If they've missed more than one, they might want to brush up on that, just that area. And we don't necessarily look at a grade, we look at, are there a whole bunch of them in a particular area? And if there are, we send an email that says, you may want to brush up on your skills here. Everybody has the mathematics for appraiser, self-study, and then they can be prepared before they ever come to class. Now, it's purely for the benefit of our instruction. And that's why I say if we are not teaching a property data collection class, we're only doing the proctoring, it's not required. We'll enroll them, but it's not required. That's for the benefit of your instructors who do, they want to know. Otherwise, it's purely for us. And yes, what happens is we have people send us, because it's just submit an email link, they would get it at the training team. The training team now has to go look, see if the person's even registered. Before they were just grading them, assuming they were registered in property data collection or valuation concepts. They grade it and then they go online onto Intellect, see they're not even registered in there, and it creates all this extra effort for the appraiser team. So now they look first, and if they're not registered, we send it back and say, we don't grade these until you are registered in one of these 2 classes. Because the benefit for us is knowing if we have to spend more time with a particular individual on certain areas of math.
So what's the proposal then?
Just that we are not grading or reviewing the math assessment if they're not.
Until they enroll in Valcon.
Right.
It's what we do now, it's just not in writing.
Yeah, that's
Right,
fine.
yes.
And that way, if it's in writing, we can just refer to a certain page, or they can refer to a certain page on the curriculum and guidelines, so that we're not repeating ourselves every time in an email.
Yeah.
That we don't do, it's better just to get in writing.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then these are just an update of what we're talking about here, wanting to add it to the curriculum and guidelines. So it's including both of those agenda items, this basic math and the continuing education topic.
See, I always thought Ken did the grading on the math one for some reason. Just been doing it that way all these years. No?
We've never
He sends it?
given a score or anything, that's
Yeah,
what you mean.
I just know that he'll say, let me go grade it, and then they come back, you got 100%. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't know he sent it to you. But maybe he just sent the results to you.
Well, no, we get the actual assessment and we grade it.
Yeah.
No, we don't get it.
Well, maybe he just does it prior to that, because he tells me. I don't
It
know.
comes through email.
Okay.
So when you do the math, you just hit a submit and it emails it directly to the appraiser
Okay,
training team.
all right. Well, that just shows my ignorance. I admit it.
And year and a half, Jane.
I just have never done Ken's job before, so that's, yeah.
Well, I'm a manager over the team, and I count on someone else to handle it, so I'm really working on. The other thing to note that we're adding into the curriculum and guidelines are those educational offerings that are going to receive automatic approval. Doesn't mean you don't send the information in, of course, but that's not something that you have to receive authorization that this qualifies.
Pre-approved.
Okay. Or not authorization, yes, pre-approval.
Okay.
So again, these are the updates that are going into the curriculum and guidelines.
This is the automatic, but see, I'm a licensed appraiser. My appraisal continuing education will still count. That's in addition to these, I assume.
I apologize, can you?
So
restate
these are the automatic, you said that these are the automatically approved UR continuing educations, but then you still have additional continuing education that you look at for approval?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And just to let you know, this we can continue to look at. If we find there are other courses that are provided by entities that would meet the requirement that we can include on this list, we'll certainly. This is not a static list.
Can I ask you, because I'm ignorant, sorry, I'm only on this board, I should know.
You're only
Do you
chairman.
include like Excel type classes as part of your class list?
No.
Okay.
And again, understanding that there is a need for it.
Yeah.
And we've been asked about that
Okay,
before. But
so I'm not stupid. Someone else has.
Sure.
Makes me feel better. Okay.
I'm sorry. We do allow a little bit of Excel, but no other Office products.
Okay.
Because a lot of appraisers do use Excel for
Yes.
calculations.
Yes, and our
If you look at
camera.
if you look at the curriculum and guidelines, I know Jeff that developed that policy.
Mm-hmm.
It is limited to how many hours you can actually report
Okay.
for Excel. It's kind of like the beginning version where, that.
Right,
we
I
allow
just had some
credits
come
and
out of it
hours.
2
Right.
days ago, so
Right.
that's why I was
Right.
thinking it.
But we've had submissions for, defensive driving, and it, you start to get where it's really, anybody should take defensive driving. But
Right.
you could take credit for a few hours of Excel, but no Word, no
Okay.
email.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure.
thank you for that
Sorry about that.
clarification. No, I appreciate it. As I said,
Could
I counted on-
could we consider putting Appraisal Institute courses in this automatic list?
Or the Department of Financial Institutions, which oversees all of the.
She's like, no.
Because there will be classes around filling out the appraisal form. Ad valorem appraisers that work for the county assessor do not fill out the form that appraisers do. They're fee appraisers. So this would, if we were to accept an organization that also was in support of the fee world, there could be many courses that would never apply to an appraiser at a county assessor. So it's because we considered all of those agencies to see if there was anything that we could say every single class they teach is or provide
doesn't
would qualify.
necessarily correlate.
And that's where that's gray area. Now there is a list, the list that the Board of Financial Institutions now publishes that's all qualified for appraisers. Every year now we are going through that list. I keep saying we. They are going through the list and taking out any of those classes that talk about forms, and that list is published on the Intellect's website on the homepage. And so now you can go and say, okay, for that agency, that is approved. That organization, that is approved. That online class. And so you'll actually have a whole list. Those
Okay.
don't require pre-approval.
Okay.
So some of those are included already.
Can you come sit next to me again?
Sorry. I'm open at the bit
No,
over here.
and that makes perfectly good
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
You're right. In
Yeah.
the fee appraisal classes, there's a lot of
Right.
classes that just
You don't
wouldn't
need-
pertain
right.
at all, and somebody's going to get credit for something they didn't have to
Right.
learn.
Right.
So that makes sense. I like that.
It's on Intellex, and that's
Yeah.
Right.
what I just learned.
That's right.
Good. Everything's on there,
Okay, and
including
then,
my hours.
so thank you for that. Thank you again, Krista, as always. And then the last item is just the update to the training curriculum and guidelines that incorporate these changes
Okay.
that will be going out for 2019. that as well.
The date? Yeah, I sent out the email. Actually, it's also on the page, the cover page of the NLX, that our goal is to get out the 2019 version within the first quarter.
Okay.
So I would suggest you try to get it out because we usually do an update every year for the curriculum and guidelines. So if you can try to get it out by the end of March, I think that's still plenty of time for the rest of the
Okay.
year
All right.
with that summary of changes.
So that everything that we've talked about as far as changes, possibly all of that's going to be in there, is what you're saying. And you're going to send this out to us sometime in March, and that'll be the final for 2019.
Yes, I need to implement all the changes
Okay.
that you're seeing here, and
Okay.
then we can send out
Okay.
the final.
Okay.
Okay? Any other questions on that? All right, and I will send this final copy. Okay. Having said that, we're at a point where we can address any other topics, call to public. Any questions? Yes, Jean?
I asked my 2 students how the classes were, which I do all the time, and they raved about your new crew. So I want you to know that they loved the 2, of course, Jeff and the new guy,
David.
And I says, there's nothing you're going to complain about? Seriously, I said, you can tell me because I'm on the board. And they said, no, we loved it. So I wanted to give you that feedback that was really great to hear. It was really great to hear because that means your new guy's really doing a good job too. So, and they really love Jeff a lot. So it was really good.
I'm not sure who's more excited to hear that, you or me.
No, I thought it was great. I
Thank
really
you for
was
the
really good feedback. Yeah.
Certainly will pass that on to them. Thank
Good.
you.
Please do.
Anything else?
Oh, I know. Do we decide on our next meeting right now?
Yeah, now you're looking at the chairman, aren't you? Okay, hold on. Can we look at a calendar here? Well, we would like to have it more than twice a year, right? So it would be sometime in June. What about your schedule, Jolene, as far as doing anything that, do you need a certain amount of time or?
The only time requirements I have are those that are required by the public meeting laws. So just enough notification prior to 24 hours, sending out information to all of the assessors, development of the agenda. So just giving enough time to meet those requirements, and of course the courtesies of notification.
We have our AAO the second or third week of each month. It's on a Thursday. But is it the second or
It's
third?
always before ACO, which is the 3rd Friday.
It's the third. Should be the Thursdays normally it's on, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're doing it the 2nd in March just because of legislation, or that's why I missed. It's on the 14th, right, which is the 2nd. It was on the 14th in February, which is the 2nd. So it's the 2nd Thursday.
Oh, it's the 2nd.
Well, the last 2 months we've been doing it that way.
Okay.
So,
And the other option is we can plan around, as a suggestion, we can plan around those 2 weeks to be in conjunction with that meeting,
Okay.
if you'd like.
Okay.
Jeannie, the reason why it was the 2nd Thursday in February is because it's actually the 3rd Friday of February. So I'm almost sure it's the
it's
3rd
because
Friday.
so they're basing it off of the ACO of the 3rd Friday, and we're the day before ACO. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'll just make it confusing. Okay. So it would be the 3rd Friday would be the 21st of June, and we're going to expect to have an AAO on the 20th of June
Maybe. We usually call it quits, I think, May.
because
our
it's
last
legislative
meeting,
season,
The
right?
legislation's over, so I think we usually take
So we don't know.
June, July, and August off, and then we start back in September for the assessors meetings. So June, we may not even have an assessor meeting. So, which it doesn't have to be, but just
Okay, so one more question then would be, if we do have an assessors meeting and we want to try to, make it where we don't, 'cause
Right, that would be June 20th.
so would you like the
May.
meeting to be the day before the assessors meeting and the day after the assessors meeting? Meaning, do you want it, because we have an ACO, so you probably don't want to be on a Friday,
Yeah.
right?
Unless we did it in the mornings.
And like, what time is the ACO?
They're all day, I think, on Fridays.
Okay, so either that or just be Wednesday afternoon,
Right. Or
so you can come up
Thursday
Wednesday.
morning,
And
but then we have to be done by
right, then you're
noon.
kind of rushing.
Get some lunch, and then 1 o'clock for our meetings.
Right.
So that way, that would mean probably an early meeting, and that would mean for us really getting a hotel room anyway. So
Hotel room anyway. So what would you like to do, gentlemen? George, you're from here, so I don't know. It's, we all have to travel somewhere else, so I'd like to make it as easy as possible and cost effective as possible, because every time we come out, obviously, it just costs more money when you spend the night and all that kind of stuff.
And if I may offer some more input, facilities are challenging for us. We
Yeah.
no longer have that room in the Arizona Department of Revenue that we used to.
the one I was trying to get up to this morning.
Yes.
Right. Now, when this building has a meeting room, we're always looking to try and hold it here. It doesn't mean we don't have any options. It's just that we need to take into account where we would hold the meeting and that there's a facility available.
All right. Well, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if we hold it in conjunction somewhere with the assessors meeting or ACO, if we can, if we're in the at the same time ACO is or somewhere around that, if we could just get some assistance with where that is located, that would be helpful. Otherwise, we will continue to try and work in this area to find a facility.
Okay. So basically, then, can we just let you find we'll give you like, all right, in 3 months, let's meet again.
Okay.
And then you need to say, okay, well, this room is available this day, and this day. So actually, we'll just wait to hear back from you if that's okay.
And I will work towards whatever day that
Okay.
you want. If there's any challenges with a facility, I can reach out to you guys to see if there's.
If we had our meeting here, not here, in Maricopa, where we have our AAO meetings, although that does get transferred to different areas. But if we had it just, I'm visualizing when we go to Maricopa at 1 o'clock, we go to the same place, maybe we can get them to okay us to have that room in the morning, then it's easier. It's in the same location, and the only thing we need to do is slip out to Big Jim's and get a lunch and come back to the 1 o'clock. Kind of thinking maybe if we can get an okay from Maricopa to approve that, that would be easier all in one place for us.
Next week, if you can, just get a feel or ask Paul or somebody that's been doing this for
How
a bunch of
difficult that
years.
would be.
Well, no, just see if we'll even have a meeting in June.
Mm-hmm.
And then if not, then we'll just pick any date.
So, the 20th in the morning, and we'll just have that as a maybe.
It's a big fat maybe.
As a-
With plenty of advance notice,
Yes.
there's a good chance I can get the room. But I just want to note that
Yeah, and
sometimes that can be challenging.
right. So, and we'll find out next week too. Are we going to have an AO meeting in June? And it does, even if we don't have an AO meeting in June, if we give plenty of notice, we might have a room anywhere.
Right.
Or I can just tell you all to come up to Havasu.
In June?
Yeah.
Can we have it on the water?
That's what I'm thinking. I
You
know.
get a houseboat?
You'll get a houseboat. We'll have our meeting on the houseboat. We're all,
go.
yeah.
Okay.
That's funny. That would be fun.
Okay, so I have that down for the 20th tentatively.
Yeah.
And I will reach back out to the committee for some assurances prior to that that date still works for you all.
Okay.
Okay. So other than that, yes, Krista.
I probably should have chimed in earlier, but when we were going through some of these topics, I made notes. On the need to do a land class, I did want to let you know that IAAO offers Land 201. because really the only Arizona-specific information that our land, the DOR land class, is the ag manual. Otherwise, everything else is just standard land, land identification systems. So IAAO 201 is an option. The only issue is they say that prerequisite is IAAO 101, 102, but they still let you take the class.
Oh, they do?
So,
Okay.
yes, yeah, they don't block you. They just say it's a prerequisite.
And it's IAAO 201.
201 is land. It is not online, so you would need to send your staff to wherever that's being taught. But that is an option. And then just my experience at DOR, for example, the DOR allowed somebody to audit the land class, and what was difficult about that was we had a full series and that person took up a spot because of the classroom size limitation. Now, the facilities that have been found recently shouldn't ever have that issue. The only time it's an issue is for level 2 because hearing procedures and mock hearings, but taking up a spot for one class shouldn't be an issue anymore for level 1 because of the larger facilities both in Tucson and in Phoenix. Judge, you asked about data collection and what was applied. Everything was incorporated except for what happens if someone goes into the field and the owner is not home. Then what do you do? Because I even communicated with Tiffany. Counties seem to have their own unique, process about they leave a note or they still go around the house if there's no gate. And I was like, I don't think we want to put this in writing and leave it up to the county to say this is our office policy. If you go in the field and someone's not home or an adult's not home. But everything else that was provided was incorporated into the training materials. So I appreciate everybody's feedback so we could get that in there. When we looked at the transition schedule and how next year is supposed to be pretty aggressive, one suggestion is to jump straight to the 2021 schedule and do that swap where level 2 is offered in the spring and level 1 is offered in the fall. The issue with that is you're going to have to now wait until the fall for level 1 to come around. That doesn't mean you can't do evaluation concepts twice in the year, but your level 1 classes wouldn't start probably until August. The land would start in August. So the benefit of that is you're still teaching, all of your classes in one part of the season instead of offering them both. So now you're like, okay, am I teaching level 1, level 2? I don't know what classes I'm teaching because they're intermixed.
Right.
So that was just a suggestion to consider.
Okay.
You'd have to know what plan you have for your appraiser, because if you start them in a level 1, then you have to wait.
And we don't know that today. We won't know that next month, and we probably won't know that until, heck, I hired somebody and sent them to level 1 the next week.
Yeah.
Okay?
You got lucky.
I got lucky,
Yeah.
right?
And I'll tell you, he had deer caught in the headlights.
Yeah.
From what I heard.
Yeah, he was, because he had no,
Yeah,
right. What's an improvement, okay?
Exactly.
So, but he did go back in, and he did a great job. So, because he got 100% on the math, I knew he was a bright guy, it wasn't fair for us to push.
Right.
But we kind of didn't want to wait a whole nother year.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
And really what's important is that valuation concepts, because remember that valuation concepts is what starts that 1 year of work experience for level 1. So technically, as long as they take level 1 classes within that year after valuation concepts, they haven't lost any time.
Right.
Because I know some agencies have pay raises based on the completion of classes, not necessarily the certification date. But as long as you get those classes within a year, you haven't lost anything with regards to the timing of a certification.
So on calendar year 2020, a good option that we can offer the assessors next week is, if it's okay with them, if we provide evaluation concepts both the fall and the spring, but go ahead and take the big lump and say we're going to do level 2 in the spring and we're going to do level 1 in the fall and make that change.
Right, just jump to 2021.
Right.
Because in 2019, Valcon is being offered twice. It's being offered in, I believe,
And if we do the same thing in 2020,
it's in August.
right.
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 That was the goal of the training team, at the last
Right.
meeting was offer valuation concepts more often. I think
Right.
twice a year is probably good enough.
Yeah.
Just with the level of students
And
that
then
are coming through
and then you don't need
classes.
to do both. Then they won't be in such a jam with trying to get somebody to come in and. I think that as long as we kind of get a verbal okay with the board, I'll try to get that. I'll contact Laura as soon as we're done with our meeting here and see if she can add that on the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll do that next week, so.
Okay.
All right, anything else from anyone? This meeting is adjourned then.
Thank you.
Do you have a gavel or something?
Chairman, do
That's
that.
the benefit of the Otter box.